everyone. Welcome back. First of all, I would like to make an announcement. Those of you whose names are not there in the list, the group list, please inform outside of the registration after the session, and we will make sure you are allotted in your respective groups. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Suresh Sethi, who is the first speaker tonight. And as mentioned earlier by Mr. Suresh, he dons three hats: that of Member CNI National Committee on Design, Director, Global Consumer Design Asia, and that of Vice President, India, Whirlpool.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this honor to be the first speaker. Always the most difficult, but I will try and make it very simple. I don't wear any hat, and wherever I am, I become part of that environment. I don't believe wearing hats is important, but for people who are losing their hair, I think it becomes very critical. And you need to wear hat at every place you are in. Having said that, let me start because I only have 30 minutes. I've spent 33 years in design, so it's 1 minute to a year, which is interesting because at the end you don't have much to say. In the beginning you have a lot to say, but when I say, for me there has been many beginnings, and maybe next year I have another beginning. So when they say I've worn many hats, what they mean is that I started with Philips in 1982 as an industrial designer. I graduated from NID, and then after spending 8 years with them, I set up my own studio. So I ran a consultancy for about 14 years in Bombay, and after that I joined IDC, and I taught here for 2 years before I moved on to Singapore, where I headed a design school for 6 years. Then I came back and now I work for Whirlpool. So I think that's what they mean when they say that I wear many hats. But I haven't changed. I still believe in what I started doing in 82 or even before when I joined NID. I believe I am a true product designer, and you will see in my work that I still am a designer in spite of being a manager or heading a department. Doesn't change the way I work. So in Whirlpool, we talk of design as creating desire. That we want consumers to buy our product, so our products have to create desire. But before I go to Whirlpool, I'll just quickly share some of the works that I've done before. And these are representation of product development. These are not representation of all the work that I've done. So it's a part of maybe one of the hats that somebody said that you will see today, or I'll share with you. So I started working in India. So why design in India? Why do we design for a country which is not design-led? If it is Italy, then you can talk of good design, beauty, good form. But when you're talking of India, why should a company like Philips design in India when they had 350 designers in one building in Eindhoven when I was working there? It was because India is different. India has certain requirements, and I was in lighting design. And in lighting, the ambient temperature outside was different than what it is in Holland. So the products of Holland would fail in India just because the temperature difference from inside to outside. And therefore, you needed larger fittings. And when you needed larger fittings, you needed to design them locally. There was also the idea of cost. They wouldn't sell at the same price as they would sell in Holland. So it became a kind of a fight that you had to sell the same product at a different price. And that was a challenge. And that's why you designed objects that actually were cost effective at that point. So the strategy of the company was to design products that were cost effective or worked in the environment they were being made for. So in spite of working for a large company which had a global design sensibility, we had a kind of brand language that had to be consistent with what we were doing in Philips Eindhoven. However, we still had the opportunity to design, and that's important for me. That was important for me. All my products that I did in those 8 years came out and did well. Now, this product, which was very simple, you see, this was the existing product that you see on the left. And I came out with this. Now, what was happening was that there was a lamp here, and there was a heat dissipation which would go straight up to the product, and the product would fail. It was as simple as that. It was not a design solution. But somehow I felt if it was failing, why was it failing? Not being an engineer, being probably only a creative person who can draw well, how did I manage to do that? Design is common sense. Everybody here is a designer, even if they've not gone to NIT. That's what my belief is. I believe that the engineers were the designers. When the railway engines came or when the motor cars came, there were not many design schools or many designers. How did it happen? And those were beautiful objects. So beauty was part of engineering. It somehow got lost in the cost effectiveness of the way we dealt with the world. Or we thought it was not my job, it was somebody else's job. I compliment the engineer when I work for a company. I work outside in. I work from the consumer's way of looking at the product. Engineers work inside out to make sure that the product that the consumer wants is possible. So we are complementing each other. Very often I hear that engineers are not good or designers are not good. I believe they have to work. It's like two hands, left and right, and if they don't come together, the product doesn't come together. So this was the product I came out with. Now this, all the components were here, so it was a little away, not too far away from the heat dissipation, didn't affect the product in the way it was affecting before. This was the first product that went back to Holland, and they designed it in plastic. We did it in metal, they did it in plastic. So this was design going backwards into the main head office. Now, this was something that as a young designer you don't expect of your work. You didn't get credit in those days being part of 400 design team. You don't really get recognized in a way, but it gave me a certain confidence that nobody could take away from me. I designed, when I was working in Holland, I designed this torch cum table lamp. I did some garden light for Singapore. So I did many projects, and I'm not going to go into details of all the projects. This was a street light here. I left Philips after 8 years, and I was, again, word of mouth. If people know you in the company, then they you don't have to look for jobs. I worked in pre-internet era in those days, so it was not easy to communicate, yet work came to me. I didn't look for work ever. This was the torches I did for Everready, which was again quick work, but a lot of that was, I made sure that product started from the beginning till the end. In the sense, I worked with the teams, not only as my work is over now, it's engineer's job. I really closely worked with marketing team, with engineering team, and with design teams to make sure that the product went out. There was nothing like I'll do 2 sketches and for the third one I'll charge you extra. Mostly my first sketches went into production. So that was the confidence with which I worked, and I didn't have to worry too much. This fan that you see here, which has about 5 copies right now, was designed by me in 2000. This was one of the first projects I did on 3D packages, and I did it in the tool rooms factory. It took me 1 day to design this product, and the client came and he says, I like it, and it went to production now. Now, how did at that point there was no consumer research that one did, because you were not paid to do it. There were no teams who were doing that. So, your experience as a designer of what consumer want, your tacit knowledge of constantly going into the market and seeing what's happening or how it is being used is important part of product design process. It cannot happen that you are doing just a beautiful form without all this. But beauty to me is critical. Your form has to be beautiful. That's something that is expected out of design. But it's kind of hygiene. It's not something special. So some people can call it style, but I believe that beauty is critical. To create desire, you need to have your product that stand out as beautiful product on the market. But having said that, doesn't mean all the other issues are not important. They are probably more important, because beauty lies in the eyes of beholder, and every customer will have a different idea what beauty is. So you need to really gauge that before you come out with the product. Now this is still being produced by the same client. It's been 15 years. And in the first 5 months, he said, sold this year 150,000 pieces. It has 5 copies. When I told my client, why don't you have an IP protection? Why don't you sue these people who are copying your product? And he said, look, I can produce so much, everything sells. I don't have time to do this. Now that is what a good product does to a company. He still calls me back and says, whatever you designed for me is sold well. Why don't you come back and design for me? So I'm saying that when you get that after 15 years or 20 years of product development, you feel good as a designer. So I was happy that these products were doing well, and even the ones I did in Philips still sell. This was another thing that I did now. Here, it was interesting. This was the first plastic air cooler that the client did in 1993. I designed this. It still sells 25 years, almost 22 years later. And when I saw it in Dwarka the other day when I was driving down, and I saw this, and I was surprised. It looked as fresh, as new. It did not look dated in some ways, at least on the shop floor. For me, it's an old product because I designed so many years ago, but it is still selling and doing well. Now, why did I design this? If I demystify the product, what was the story behind it? The product had a blower, and the blower was with 4 blowers. He wanted 5 blowers at that point. So all I had to, and it was like this. Normally a cooler, the blower is like this. And it was making the product very ungainly. It was making it very big. It didn't need that much of product. I also believe that products have to be compact. So I turned the blower. Now that's something that I did, and I thought, if I do this, I can bring the product down, and it can become taller. Again, it was to be used in Bombay, in the houses that were compact, in the rooms that were compact. So that was the way I thought at that point, and I designed this. And I made it look like a building. So the step that you see in front is actually as if there are 2 buildings there, one next to each other. And also it makes the product look slim and taller, because if you break the plane into 2 lines or 2 parts, it makes the product slim. So that was the thought behind me. There was nothing more. And it didn't take me too long to produce this. It was designed in about a month's time and finalized. And in 3 months, the drawings were given to the client. Now, we would also do, as my office, we would also do engineering drawings so that the product did not fail in some ways or change as we went into production. I did many coolers for that client, almost 10. I designed my product sold in Middle East, and I designed for some companies in the Middle East. I'm going to quickly go through this. Now, these are some products I'm not going to explain. One of the water filters I designed in 1988, which for 15 years was the highest priced product in the market at that point. Now, design could change that your product will sell, get you more profits. Even for the cooler that I designed, it got him 2,000 rupees and 4,000 rupees product. And the other products that it was competing were about 2,500 rupees. Every company in the range had to make a tower cooler at that point. So I'm just saying that is how the power of design is. And if it's developed well and in benchmark against all that competition is doing, you'll actually be able to do well in the market. I did casseroles. I'll just run through quickly, and then I go to Whirlpool projects. I did television for Videocon. I did machines for manufacture electronic device. I did nebulizer, and all these products are in production. I also was invited as one of the top 100 designers in 1990 to design a surface of the pot. Now, this brought interesting aspect into design development, the idea of customization, the idea of using product skin as an element which will help mass production to customize for different markets. So each designer was allowed to tell a story, and that story was made into a visual which was embedded onto the surface of the pot. So 10,000 pots from 100 designers in the first production. So 100 each, and all these 10,000 pieces were numbered in the bottom. So these are part of large collectors' homes or in museums. So there are 100 designers, and the best designers, I later got to know Sotsas and Philip Stark were part of this 100. So I was part of those 100 designers, which became, for me, very interesting, because I at that point was about 32 years old when I did this project. And for a young designers at that point to become part of that fraternity was important. I also ended up doing design for calendars, which were strategically being used to sell this steam pot by Massimo Morazzi. So I got these illustrations made in India for an Italian company before internet came in. This was the first time I actually used fax, 1989. So this was done again in a week's time for a client who's not met me personally. Again, how to understand the client's brief without meeting the client is important when you don't even get an email or a phone call at that point. I worked for an Italian company for a year for designing chairs for the Indian market as well as Asian market. Now, that was my brief journey of 20 years before I became a teacher, and I taught for full time for 8 years before I went back to Whirlpool. Now, having taught 8 years, why would somebody want to go back into professional world? Because when you're sharing things with your students, you don't know how the companies have changed. I was young when I joined Philips, and I had spent years outside the company and in academia. But I needed to understand how do leadership in a company work. I got this opportunity of joining Whirlpool. I was heading India and China, which was Asia Design Studios. So it gave me opportunity for understanding the two biggest emerging markets, or two biggest markets that are going to be there for the next 30 years. At Whirlpool, the key to innovation lies in understanding consumer experiences. Apart from saying products have to be beautiful, they have to really engage users. The products that work for them, that appeal to them, and are intuitive and easy to use. Now, this is the mantra that we work with. We have globally 6 design studios. The head office is in Benton Harbor with 140 designers. We have a large studio in Italy near Milan with 50 designers. One in Mexico, Brazil, India, China. Those are the studios. Till last year, December, I was heading India and China. Now we've sold that company. We bought a company in China which is merged in a different location. So the studio in Shanghai is closed down. And I only now head the South Asia studio, which is in India. We have this global brand language, which we call GEBL, which is Global Emotional Brand Language. We follow the same process that every design studio processes. There's a definition, there's discovery, and there's development. So I'm not going to go into all this. But it's very critical that the company believes that consumer is the focus. And that's not just in design, but innovation, in development, in the marketing leadership. They believe that consumer is the king, and that's what we have to cater to. Within the GCD, when we talk of EBL, we talk of design attributes. And these design attributes are basically how the consumer is using design. What is it that the consumer wants? So it has to be the consumer, it should be intuitive to use. It should be leading edge, and what we mean is that it simplifies the consumer's life. It should be pure, it should be quiet. In a way, when I say pure and quiet, it should become part of the environment, it should gel with the environment of the consumer. It should be delightful to use, and as I already said, it should integrate with the environment of the house or wherever the product is. So when we look at consumer in India, what do? We have many different segments of consumer, and you can see all these pictures at the bottom. That is some of the consumer that we are catering to. But at the same time, we're looking at the future, because future in India would be youth. So that's where you need to look at. So who are we talking to is very important to us. Who are we designing for is very important for us. So we have within our group in design, we have a group which does consumer research. We go into their homes, we meet them, we interview them, we try and understand how they live with devices in everyday living. If you look at a simple process of washing in a home, we've documented that. We get insights out of what are the problems, what are the key issues that they have, and we kind of build the product around that. These are the personas that we have for each of these research, where we look at our story that the brand or marketing is making. Like we have a brand called 360 Broom Wash, we have another one which is called Stain Wash, and we have a Power Wash, and we create personas based on that and do a huge amount of research. A huge amount of time is spent by the teams to understand the consumer needs. And then we try and understand as designers, what drives them. It's not just researching and documenting. It's to interpret that research, which is the key. And design team has to get these insights as part of their product development. So the product has things that a marketing understands, which are tangible, which are like what kind of features do we have, what is the innovation, what is the differentiation, what is the lifestyle. But there are also things like touch points, experiences, social connections to a product. And when we say that we have to localize a product in my company, they always say, why? The car company industry doesn't localize. Why is it that appliances have to be localized? There's always a constant fight that you need to bring a global product and put it on to the consumer here. But our team is our team, and we kind of fight. They show us these kind of images where they say, look, a motorcycle guy in the village, how does it matter? You can give the same washing machine. Why do you have to redesign the washing machine? There's a constant fight when you work for a large company, and aligning people becomes a bigger job than designing a product. So I may design a product, or my team may design a product in a week, but aligning the global counterparts will take probably a year. So if simple product, when we keep showcasing products that we've designed locally which have done well and how it is essential. So this was a product, that twin tub machine that we designed in India, which is what we basically see as a product that has done very well for the company, and it has been copied in many ways. We've had IP protection, legal department spending more money in fighting a case against Videocon than having spent on the product development. So IP protection sometimes takes more money and time than real design. So that's the issue. When I have issue of, so you need to probably redesign and go on with a new product rather than to fight competition, because I've seen in the past people chose not to fight the competition. So this was a semi-automatic. This won us even global awards. We won Edison Award in the US for this product. We went further. We engineered this product into the cheapest machine. So this is the new version of the same product that's in the market now. It's called Superb, and we just launched it a few months ago. And it's doing extremely well. It interprets the consumer needs very effectively and what their needs are. It got us 2% Whirlpool market share growth after we launched. We did the same thing in China. This was a machine my team did in China. We did a consumer research with the people, and we created this product, which is called Armstrong. Very beautiful product. You look at the way they also have the same ways of washing small clothes before they put it into the washing machine. So we created this. This is in the market. It was launched a year and a half ago. You all know about this pedestal in the refrigerator, which was done by our team even before I joined. This was a pedestal where people could store their onions and potatoes under the fridge. Now, this is not a cooled pedestal, but somehow it became so popular that every competition copied it. And it bought huge, it's a very, I say, unusable product in the real sense. If I look at the size, it's very small. But somehow, innovations like this also do well, and people start copying. It becomes a standard, So I sometimes don't understand what is it that designers are looking at. You have so much space, just make something. But again, it's something that is required. So we could redesign it better the next time. The first time it may look ugly, like Picasso said, that when you paint the first time, it is ugly. But somebody else does it, he can make it more beautiful. So hopefully people have copied it, make it more beautiful. But unfortunately, it didn't happen in this product. So we chose a new product, which is a 3-door, where we made a new drawer, which is cool drawer. Now this is a big drawer, useful and cooled. Now this has won us India Design Mark. This has also been sent for the Japan Design Mark, and we received it yesterday. We got information that it's cleared the second screening, and we are awarded the Japan Design Award. Now I'm saying a good product, and it's done wonderful for us in terms of business. This was a sagging product which we launched a few years ago. The design was not changed. The moment designed, we only changed the door, nothing else, and it started doing well. So sometimes you have to, innovation, see the cadence of how in the next 3 years you're going to change the product without changing the major tooling. Now that's critical part of large industry, appliance industry, where you can't change all the tools at the same time. So you need to really develop with that understanding. That means designers have to work very closely with engineers to understand the issues. Again, I'll show you another project which is Ice Magic, where we studied the situation of power cuts in most of Indian homes and how people feel that they can't even keep a bottle of water or milk cool if there is an 8-hour power cut. So we did this Keno analysis and we found out that chilled water for 17 hours when there is a power cut. Now, that is something that people would want. That was the highest requirement of the consumer. So what we did is we designed a place inside the door, which we called Power Cool, and we put brine inside the box. And we kind of created a place where you could keep a bottle of milk and for 8 hours it will stay cool. Of course, now competition has made a zone which is power cooled, and now we have the whole fridge which is power cooled. But this was the beginning of that innovation. This was the small innovation that actually did very well for us, and the product really was the top seller. So this is the design that my team did. So we also worked with engineers and how the airflow would be. So you can see there's an airflow that happens while the fridge is on to keep the whole thing cool, and then it also cools the brine solution, which then stays cool when there's a power cut. So you see the location of the product here. Now this is another product which again is keeping 7 days garden fresh, meaning your vegetable stays fresh, so there's an airflow within this. So the other thing that we found out from the market, apart from it being cool, the freshness is critical. And freshness is the new buzzword when it comes to refrigeration. So every innovation that we're trying to make or do has to relate. Now, this is not an innovation. It's a simple slide where air goes in. Now, for a customer on the shop floor to understand whether this is working or not, we need to give something more visual, or there has to be a visual cue that customer can see. Now, again, when you put we've designed this case where you could put the softer vegetables so that they don't get crushed in the harder ones. So this is something that also helps us manage the way you keep things inside your refrigerator. Now, at the same time, my team is working on lifestyle refrigerators. How we are a company which only makes appliances, so we are always in the kitchen, whereas Samsung and LG, our competition, are outside. Now, what do we do? How do we do to bring our logo outside into a living space? So this is a concept that was made by my team, which is a refrigerator that was showcased in CES.
Hi, I'm Rich Brown for CNET. We're here at CES and we're going to take a look now at the Whirlpool Credenza. So right now this is a concept piece, but the idea is that it sort of brings refrigeration to a very living room friendly setup here. They've got a couple of refrigerated compartments here. All these drawers slide out. There's another one here. You can pull like a candy tray or something. So right now, again, this is just a concept piece, although Whirlpool has brought concepts to market that it's shown at shows like this, so you never know. One day this might be a real product. So I'm Rich Brown, this is the Whirlpool Credenza.
So basically, as designers, we are part of a larger team and we play a very small role. I don't believe that designers lead. We are led by marketing. However, we lead in a very tacit way, in a way of understanding a consumer so that products that the marketing bring out into the market actually affect their lives. So how do we do it? We understand user experience, their emotions, and how we story tell through our products, objects that they live with, is what I basically think designers do. That's all I have in my presentation. My team has won many awards, and I'll be happy to take some questions. I hope I'm on time. Yeah, I think. This time, first time I tried doing that. So.
Sir, in Whirlpool, is there any design language document done for the designers or industrial designers to have the guidelines so that the product look within a family?
We're working all the time on that, but Whirlpool as a company has actually bought many companies, acquired many companies. And when you acquire a company, you actually buy all the products that they are making. Like all the tools that when we bought Kelvinator in India and we became Whirlpool India, we actually were forced to use the language of that company. In China, we bought Sanyo. So we've been loaded with 100 platforms that come from there. So even in spite of the fact that we have a design language, whether we can actually use the design language all the time is very difficult. We bought Indicet in Europe, so I'm saying we've been burdened with another 200 platforms. So even if we try and streamline and standardize the language, it becomes very, very hard. It's easy when you start a company. We are a 100 years old company, but there is a design language that we try and relate, but we also have differences of cultures, of consumers, which we also try and embed. Now, I didn't talk about culture as part of what we do and how we relate to the local culture, which actually Professor Chakrabarty wanted me to talk about, but somehow I thought 30 minutes it will become too different, so I needed to stop at a certain point.
How difficult or easy it is for like being in India and designing a product that will not be used in India but some other country?
It's easier to design. If you can design for India, you can design for any country in the world. We have 20 countries in India, so if you can design almost 30 countries with 30 languages. So I think if you anybody who's designed for India, and when I say design for India with a conscious effort of understanding the consumer, then you will be able to do it for them. We have many segments in the same country. They have there is a linearity of segmentation there. There's a kind of trend that everybody follows. If black is trendy, you put black, it will sell. So you need to understand the trend at that point in those countries, and therefore you will be able to do well. Or make something so neutral that it fits into the homes. Like this product that we've designed in here, we're willing to accept. I've designed for refrigerators in China, for China, with China decoration, which are fitting well for Americans because there are a lot of Chinese living there. So I think the world's become simpler than what it was. When I say that, because there's a kind of flatness in the way the consumers are. It's no longer so different as it used to be, because now the internet and the media is actually bringing everything to everybody instantly.
Having headed both India and China, how do you compare our talent vis-a-vis China?
Young people are talented everywhere. I don't compare young people. But I compare the leaders who actually guide them. And I had to change my hat in China because they would take instructions well. So here they wouldn't take instructions well, but I still needed to get work out of my people. So it depends on how you deal with them. It's like when you eat mutton curry or Chinese food there, how do you adapt? So you have to adapt. They will not change for you. But having said that, I would say they're extremely talented. Chinese people are very industrious, hardworking, and they are creative. People have a wrong notion when they say that, oh, China, they don't think. I'm sorry, they are very sensitive artists, and their ability to understand and execute. I think it's also about the education that they get. The education is much more firmer there. more sounder in terms of the basics of how what they are taught. Somehow, some of the schools in India are not doing that right now because of lack of the. They want to take too many things and do too many things at the same time. I feel that they're fairly grounded in the process of industrial production, which some of the designers that come out of our institution don't have that. But however, having said that, I think our people are our students are very quick to grasp and understand what is required. So, and there is a leadership quality of each of the talent that comes out, and they could be great entrepreneurs. Whereas the Chinese may not be able to be great entrepreneurs to start with. So I see the studios and the establishment and the articulation of the Indian design fraternity in India far, far ahead of what China has at this point. I was looking for a design manager in China and India in the last 3 years. I found the numbers were very few, the landscape is very small. You can't find somebody who's 20 years experience very quickly. Same is true of India, they are a handful. So I'm saying, but if you're looking at younger people, there's huge talent. But at that level, where 15 to 25 years, India has more people than China. So I'm saying it's again behind time in terms of numbers at the leadership level, but at the junior level, the numbers there are much larger than India. So what is happening is when you have numbers, your talent pool, the best talent becomes bigger. In India, the number of designers are so few, 5,000, 10,000. Now 10,000, 100 good designers is all that you'll have. If you have 100,000 designers, you probably have 10,000 good designers. When I say good designer, everybody is good. But what you're looking for is the talent pool which is right like the apple. So I'm saying that's where the problem is in India. The numbers are few. We still haven't reached critical mass of designers who can appreciate, push each other, compete with each other. So when the numbers small, competition is less. That's all that I would say.
Thanks.
How did you go about the positioning and the differentiation? Because there are quite a few local players and global players with very similar products.
I think appliance is a difficult trade. I never thought I'll come and work for an appliance company because it's boxes. So that differentiation part is really, really extremely hard, and it's all about marketing. I think they play a big role there. Designers really don't. We try our bit, like we'll bring one thing or the second thing, like some of these issues that we're trying to do inside in terms of getting the noticeability of the product, trying to make the product simple, usability. But I think when you talk, what you're talking of is really taken care by marketing. And they define the features, they define what cost bracket it has to come into. They take onto the products which actually are launched in the market and not the designers who really do it. So when I say designer plays a small role, these are not design entrepreneurs. This is not Apple where it's a design-led company. We consumer appliance companies are traditional metal companies, and to bring a new refrigerator in a different platform means investment of a huge order. You need to change the whole plant. How can you do that? So I'm saying you need to work within the boundary condition when you work for an appliance company, and if you understand boundary condition, and so very little change and a market share growth is what matters. So I don't think you need to do too much into these designs. See, I lived in India. I worked in India from 82, okay, and I lived in Italy in 85. When the market is, Italy in 85 was like what India and China are today. So it depends on the money power that the consumer has. Now Europe doesn't have the money it used to have, so they'll live with less. But we used to live with less when I was a kid. And how did we design then? So you need to marry the situation. You can design for every market, Of course, it will not sell as fast as it will sell in India and China. So I tell my student, why do you want to look out? Market is here. So you need to understand the local consumer, and you need to understand your power of knowing this area would really enrich you and bring you benefit as you move forward. But still, people want to look at magazines from outside and design for India. What can I say about it?
How do you bridge the gap between designers and manufacturers?
I don't see them different. The part of the team, we don't build the silos. We try and bring them onto the board. We need to have conversation right from the day you start sketching. No, we have a fight, so don't think that it's so simple.
So the fight becomes even earlier when it goes to an outsourcing model. The contract manufacturer says, yeah, this can be done, ho jayega, and all that. And finally, when the finished product or the mount comes out, it's not even close to what it is in the design.
No, I think that then there is a problem of matching the. Meaning, when you design, you understand the production process. So if it is using a different production process, then there will be that kind of mix-up. So it's not that production comes later after you've designed. That is a boundary condition. Now, if that boundary condition is not understood by the designer, it's bound to change. And to me, if the product is simple, I don't know how I managed it, but from the very beginning, I made things very simple. So if it's easy to produce, and it saves money to the company. And I didn't think of it consciously. I didn't think of value engineering. But when I look back at my work, and I see every time I saved money in terms of materials, in terms of cost of tooling, and not make it complicated. And I think it's because your ego of designer has to be removed. Designer, when it merges with the process, is no longer that it's design led or marketing led. So I think very often we say, "Mera design hai, aap change nahi kar sakte." Why do we say that? I think that ego part of, so for me, design is destroy the sign, and not only develop the sign, destroy the sign. When I say it should not be a sign product, it's a mass produced product. It's not luxury. I have done luxury products. I've done one-off products, and I'm not sharing that with you today. But I'm saying, when you remove the brand, that's when you actually do profits to the company. But very often that ego comes in and you fight. But why are you fighting? So you need to understand the other side. So you need to become good listener. Designers are good talkers, but you need to become good listeners, and that's what I think is our failure in some ways. So when you say consumer, design is different from art because artists can do what they want to. Designers have to do for somebody else. So they have looking at to consumer's life, a consumer time. So I think that's important. That's not true. I worked in Philips in 1982 when there were no rapid prototyping. Our products were exactly what came out in the market. They were actually registered. The photographs of the mock-ups were registered for IP protection at that point. They were used in the advertisement. So I don't believe that that's the way it works. Even today, when we do rapid prototyping and all, the prototypes have to look the way they should. So how can you say they will be different? I think I could get handmade models which are as good as rapid prototype that I get from China today. I'm telling you, when we used to work with carpenters and model makers and lathe machines and vacuum forming, but it depends on your ability to see as a designer and how you conceive and perceive a product is what is important. I don't believe that's true. There must be some limitation within the system which I don't understand, and you'll have to look into your own cases and see where is the problem. and how you can sort it out. But I don't see that in the system that I work for.
Sir, my question is about timeline and innovation, sir.
I think this will be last question because then we will be running beyond time.
The question is about timelines and innovation, sir. In the different companies that you have worked in the past, what do you think is an ideal system of setting timelines and adhering to them to get your innovation success?
9 months.
9 months. No, not.
That's
What is your experience, sir? What is your experience?
Time, I don't think that every situation will have its own inherent timeline, and there's no general rule here. It depends on the complexity of the product. I work for a very simple product. I was telling somebody this morning that ISRO does a faster job than an appliance company in coming out with new models. So I'm saying that timelines are built in. If you don't align people rightly, if you don't have the right discussion at the right point, if you don't have the right cost or right idea, so it has to complement, and then everything will be met and done in time. So when you say timeline innovation, it's too broad a question. So if you have
Apple's timeline is 9 months, sir. To the people who laughed here, Apple's timeline is 9 months because in the 12th month their product is out in the market. So every year, that's how that
why
company
that is? Because
works.
they have to bring out in the tech fair
Yes,
a new, for their investors,
right,
a new launch. So
correct.
it is not about that they are doing anything only for 9 months.
Right.
Because every year they need to tell the investor what they are doing. It's a perception game. So I don't believe it's so enshrined that in 9 months you'd come out with innovation. Right. Where does that happen? So it is a cycle of what they tell the investor. Because I work for a large company. Every quarter, what we say every quarter to the press gets me the money.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is not about real product development. The product development may be going on for 10 years. But they may launch at a point which looks as if they are doing new launch every 9 months. But that's a planned way of getting investors to. Yes, today I was reading in the paper that what they showed 2 days ago, investors are not very pleased. So if you read between the line, it's about investors, nothing more. It's not real innovation in that sense. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sethi, for taking us through the key features and product strategies in such short span of time and for such wide range of projects from illustrations to home appliances. The next speaker we have for you today is our very own Professor Uday Atwankar. I think sir, I would like to